Watching cartoons is definitely awesome, and watching anime is equally great.
Yeah!
So, don't you think it was only a matter of time before some folks got the idea to make anime adaptations of successful cartoons? One of the most famous cases for sure is Powerpuff Girls Z, an anime released in 2006 that brought an oriental version of the Townsville Protectors but set in Tokyo, Japan. The twist is that the new animation inspired by the successful Cartoon Network series released in 1998 with 6 seasons completely changed the storyline of the cartoon, since the girls were now 13 years old and not sisters. Moreover, none of them was Professor Utonium's daughters, who actually had a son, a super genius boy named Ken, who has a talking dog named Peach. Moreover, the girls' powers are quite different from the original versions, which involve flying and super strength. In this anime version, they use objects as weapons, namely a yo-yo, a hammer, and a scepter. Completely different from its original version, the anime even became successful in the Land of the Rising Sun and had 52 episodes. So, we can say there are Powerpuff Girls for both cartoon enthusiasts and anime fans. Just take your pick. And if Cartoon Network has an anime of its own, of course Disney wouldn't be left behind. The House of Mouse decided to use one of its classic successful series from the time, Lilo and Stitch. So, in 2008, the series was released as a direct continuation of the 2003 animated series. In the plot, 10 years have passed, and Lilo has grown up. Stitch then goes back into space, but ends up being sucked into a black hole and returns to Earth, only this time he lands in Okinawa, Japan. There, the alien creature befriends a girl named Yuna. The show basically has the same vibe as Lilo and Stitch, only without Lilo, who appears only occasionally. And precisely for this reason, the anime was simply called Stitch. It lasted 3 seasons and made the classic even more popular in the East. If you're a fan of Marvel heroes, I'll warn you right away that we have a few anime adaptations of characters and heroes from the company on this list. The first one we're going to talk about is the anime of Iron Man, one of the most famous Avengers in history. In the story, Tony Stark is retiring from the hero life and passing on the mantle of Iron Man. He then goes to Japan on business, but upon arrival, his confidential project that would be negotiated with the Japanese National Defense Force is stolen, and he needs to don his hero armor once again, especially after being attacked by a robot named Zodiac. The series had 12 episodes, released from 2010 and 2011, and another movie released in 2013 called Iron Man: Rise of Technovore. The series has a more mature tone and is loved by some and hated by others. Now, tell me, what do you like the most, cartoons or anime? Comment below to let us know. #cartoon or #anime. Returning to talk about Cartoon Network cartoons, let's talk about one of the most recent successes of the world's most famous exclusive animated channel. Launched in 2018, Craig of the Creek already had 160 episodes divided into 4 seasons. And the show, which follows a group of kids led by Craig, was so successful worldwide that Cartoon Network itself commissioned an anime version of the show's opening, with the Japanese music version to celebrate the beginning of the 2022 San Diego Comic-Con. The opening was really cool, and the music matched quite well too, but it was just the opening. There are no episodes in this format. In any case, we can say there is indeed an official anime version of Craig of the Creek, or at least a snippet, which is already pretty cool. And if Marvel has a hero and anime version, of course DC wouldn't want to miss out. Surely the character from the giant comic book company most related to Oriental culture is Batman, who is a martial arts expert. That's why, in 2018, Bruce Wayne's alter ego got the film Batman Ninja. In it, Gorilla Grodd ends up transporting several villains, along with Batman and his allies, to the time of feudal Japan. There, villains like Penguin, Two-Face, and Joker become warlords, and Batman is awaited as the fulfillment of a prophecy to liberate the people from these villains. With less technology and full of katana duels, Batman Ninja was considered one of the best anime adaptations of cartoons of all time. Since it's a movie, it has a much quicker and easier to watch storyline. Everyone knows that Batman movies and cartoons are synonymous with success, when Batman is the protagonist, of course. Now let's talk about a historic cartoon that also had an anime version that few people know about, thank God. We're talking about the 2-episode anime called Mutant Turtles: Legend of Superman. That's right, even Superman's name, which has nothing to do with this, was used, and he doesn't even appear or is mentioned in the 2 OVAs. But here's the deal, the 4 Ninja Turtles, April and Master Splinter, travel to Japan to visit a temple, and there they have the chance to transform and evolve for 3 minutes into Super Turtles. Anime stuff. Moreover, the 4 brothers manage to quickly unite and form, believe it or not, the almighty Holy Turtle. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but it's not my fault. Anyway, this is the anime version released in 1996 of the Turtles that were so successful, and still are, in their less different versions. Now, let's talk about a very interesting case. Mario Bros. Is the most famous game in history, no doubt, and the huge box office of the movie released in 2023 proves it. But besides the game, the mustached plumber has already had several animated versions, and here's the interesting part of the story. Despite the game and the character being created in Japan, the most successful cartoons of the franchise were Western. This doesn't mean there aren't anime versions of Mario Bros. In one of them, in fact, Mario himself uses a sword to face Bowser and ends up ripping off one of the Koopa King's horns. And in another movie, also an anime version, Mario saves Peach from Bowser, who wanted to marry her as always, but discovers in the end that she was engaged and gets heartbroken. Honestly, I would too. So, never fall in love with someone who's engaged. That won't do you any good for sure. Another quick tip that will also do you good, subscribe to the channel now if you haven't already. Surely that will also do your heart good. Iron Man wasn't the only Marvel anime production. In fact, several others were made. And one of them, which is also considered one of the best, is the X-Men anime version. The group of mutants led by Professor Xavier investigate a case of mutant kidnapping that has been happening in Japan with the aim of organ trafficking. The anime had 12 episodes and was praised for its action scenes, but it was also criticized for the designs of some characters that were very different from their original versions, as was mainly the case with Beast, who gained a kind of protruding snout, which doesn't exist in any of his other versions. The mutant team ends up getting involved in a conflict between mutants in Asia, but in the end, everything works out and they emerge victorious, as should happen with the good guys in Hero series. Speaking of the X-Men, even before the series was released, a solo series was launched with the most famous member of the team, Wolverine. Released a few months earlier, in the same year of 2011, the cartoon revives one of Logan's most famous arcs, which involves his relationship exactly with the land of the rising sun. The hero ends up in Japan after discovering that his girlfriend, named Mariko, was kind of kidnapped by her father, who is a famous member of the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia. The story unfolds in a total of 12 episodes as well, and it was another of the partnerships between Marvel and Madhouse, the Japanese animation studio that was also responsible for animating the Iron Man series, and also the X-Men, which we talked about earlier. Unlike the other series where the adamantium-clawed mutant appears, in his solo cartoon, Wolverine has a much less muscular and more slender body, which is basically the style of most Japanese cartoons because of the audience preference for this type of design. The story and its ending are a bit dull, but if you haven't checked it out yet, it's worth taking a look. After all, Wolverine is Wolverine, so there will always be some really cool surprises in his movies and cartoons. The Amazing World of Gumball. And of course, we couldn't miss on our list one of the most fun moments involving the mix of a cartoon with anime. We're talking for sure about the fight scene between Nicole and Yuki, her former dojo colleague and friend. After many years, Mrs. Yoshida seeks a rematch against her rival after being defeated years ago. It's not a standalone series or a movie like the other members here on our list, but for sure the Amazing World of Gumball's production team did an exceptional job animating this fight, which was incredible. Seriously, if it lasted another 10 minutes, I wouldn't complain one bit. So, the anime version in Gumball couldn't miss being on our list of cartoons that got an anime version. That's why when someone asks me if I prefer cartoons or anime, I always think, is there a cartoonime? Because if there is, I'm definitely in. Check out these 2 videos that are appearing on the screen now for you. We handpicked them, just like the cartoons we showed in this list. See you in the next video, alright? Until then.